Hello and welcome to What They're Really Doing to You, where I'm going to cut through the jargon, the tactics, the general BS to explain what really goes on around this place, and it's some really bad stuff lately. So you probably heard that Republicans passed this bill that the president calls the Big Beautiful Bill. I call it the Big Beautiful Betrayal, and it is a legislation that basically hacks away at Medicaid, throws 16 million people off their health care, and really hurts a lot of people when it comes to food assistance. That's also called SNAP, just so you know, SNAP. And what that is, it stands for something, but it helps people snap back, right? When they suddenly lose their job and they need some help to put food on the table for their kids, or they're a veteran and they're in a bad place when they come home and they need some help. In order to give tax breaks to a bunch of wealthy people, they made a bunch of these cuts, still adding like $4 trillion to the debt, but that's another story. So today I want to specifically talk about SNAP because it's really important, this food assistance for people who sometimes have bad luck. Things happen to them. Older Americans, veterans, people with disabilities, and more. So right now at fundraisers across the country, sadly our Republican colleagues are boasting to their donors that they found a way to give them these tax cuts for the wealthy. It inordinately benefits the wealthy, right? And they did it actually by throwing the people off their health care, by putting the spending on SNAP benefits, reducing them by $186 billion on regular people. But they never really tell them how they did it. So how did they do it? Well, first, and this is the SNAP part, they terminated benefits for almost 3 million people, including veterans, homeless people, young adults trying to get out of foster care. Our country has always been willing to give people a helping hand, but not right now. Second, they reduced benefits for millions more by changing how SNAP accounts for everyday costs like housing and the internet. They also took away the ability to adjust SNAP to reflect changes in food supply and the American diet. They made it really much harder for people. Third and finally, and this is the real wild part, they forced the states to foot the bill for things the federal government's always paid for. So, right, you got 50 states, so they said to them, hey, you're going to start doing this, but we're going to look like we made a lot of cuts. It's as if your roommate boasted that they cut their expenses by forcing you to cover their half of the rent. Would that make them a fiscal genius or a jerk? I think it's pretty obvious. So now state governments throughout the country are scrambling, red states, blue states, to figure out how they're going to cover the new expenses. At this point, their options are to either stop funding SNAP, they're part of it, or cut other services. So should they hack away at food assistance and food shelves, food banks, or should they spend less on law enforcement? Should they pull funding from schools, or should they reduce services for seniors? Or should they raise state taxes on people that really can't afford it? These are the horrible choices that the president and congressional Republicans just handed down to your state's government. And now they're trying to sell it off as some act of fiscal genius and that they helped a bunch of their wealthy friends. So to add insult to injury, in order to get everyone on board on their side, they even added a last-minute provision. And it's hard, they made it really hard to understand, but it's unbelievable. They took the states with the highest error rates, and they said they wanted to reward states with low error rates, right? They said, okay, if you overpay or underpay by mistake, we want you to get that under 6%. If you do that, then we'll take back some of those payments you have to make. But they found out that one person they were trying to get on board, who wouldn't say whether they'd vote for the bill, that state had a super high error rate. That was Alaska. So what they did is they said, okay, we're going to actually reward you for your high error rate. And they can't just do one state because that looks kind of bad and it's not going to pass the rules. They're going to do a bunch of them. So if you think you smell sausage making, you'd be correct. The truth is that the dedication to getting tax cuts for the wealthy outweighed the commitment to fiscal responsibility. What started as an effort to lower error rates became a reward for states with the higher error rates. So that's going to be based on 2025, so we're halfway through, but we do have some examples from 2024. Florida, which has a high error rate, avoids nearly $1 billion in SNAP cuts because of having a high error rate. At the same time, Texas, already struggling with the floods and the tragedy of what happened, they get hit with a more than $700 million bill a year. Why? Because their error rate is too low to qualify. New York has a high error rate, so they get off over $1 billion. But California has a low error rate, as does most of the Midwest. And so they have to pay. It's absolutely absurd. Congressional Republicans are going to run around pretending they brought common sense to SNAP benefits. But the truth is, they made it harder and harder for the states that are trying to do the right thing. I'm going to keep talking about it because I think you need to know what's really going on around this place. Thanks for listening.